The wind of the Hudson cut sharply through the narrow side streets of New York City, carrying with it the scent of rain and exhaust. It was late past the hour when office towers near Wall Street went dark and the cleaning crews took over. Daniel Whitmore adjusted his scarf as his driver apologized for the detour. Construction had swallowed half the avenue, and traffic was frozen solid. "I'll walk," Daniel said. The driver hesitated. "Sir, this isn't." "I'll walk." Daniel preferred movement to waiting. Movement cleared his mind, and he had always believed something else too. When you slow down enough to walk, you see what cars hide. It was an old habit. One that began decades ago in Brooklyn, when he was a skinny boy delivering groceries after school. His mother used to say, "Danny, don't just look. Look again. Opportunity hides in the second glance." Back then, opportunity meant finding a lost coin on the sidewalk or noticing a "help wanted" sign others missed. Later in life, it meant spotting a flaw in a contract that saved his company millions. Tonight, he didn't know what it meant. But the habit remained. As he turned down a quieter street lined with restaurant dumpsters and flickering lamps, he heard a metallic scrape. It wasn't loud. Most people would have ignored it. Daniel didn't. He paused. There it was again, the rustle of plastic bags. A lid shifting. He glanced toward the alley beside a seafood restaurant. The back door was shut, lights dimmed inside. At first glance, it was just a shadow moving. At second glance, it was smaller than a shadow should be. Daniel stepped closer, his polished shoes splashing lightly in a shallow puddle. Behind a large green dumpster, a small figure stood on tiptoes, reaching inside. The girl moved quickly, efficiently, like someone who had done this before. She pulled out a tight bag, tore it open carefully, and inspected the contents with quiet concentration. Her coat was thin, pink once, now dulled by grime. Her sneakers were worn at the edges. She found half a sandwich, wrapped loosely in paper. She inspected it, brushed off a piece of lettuce, and placed it carefully into a plastic grocery bag she carried. Daniel's throat tightened. He had seen poverty before. He had lived it, but something about a child performing the adult choreography of survival unsettled him deeply. He took another step forward. A bottle shifted under his shoe with a crack. The girl froze instantly. Her body stiffened, like a deer sensing a hunter. Slowly, very slowly, she turned around. Daniel expected fear. He saw calculation. Large blue eyes studied him with sharp awareness far beyond her ears. She wasn't crying. She wasn't begging. She was assessing risk. And then it hit him. He had seen those eyes before. 3 weeks earlier, in a boardroom presentation interrupted by breaking news from CNN, the screen had flashed a photo of a smiling girl with identical eyes. Missing, Lily Harrington, age 9. The only daughter of tech billionaire Charles Harrington. The case had exploded across every network, Fox News, morning shows, social media feeds. A $10 million award offered. Digital billboards from Manhattan to Los Angeles. The girl in the photo had perfect hair, a navy blue school blazer, and a bright confident smile. The girl in front of him was thinner. Dirt streaked her cheeks. Her hair was tangled. But the eyes, they were the same. Daniel felt his pulse in his ears. He crouched slowly, keeping his voice gentle. "Hey there," he said. The girl's fingers tightened around her plastic bag. "I'm not going to hurt you." Silence. He removed his gloves deliberately, showing empty hands. "It's cold," he added softly. Her gaze didn't soften. "They said not to talk to strangers," she replied. Her voice was steady, but small. Daniel nodded. "That's smart." He studied her carefully, forcing himself not to rush. No visible bruises. No rope marks. No panicked scanning of the environment. She didn't look kidnapped. She looked self-directed. "Are you alone?" he asked. She hesitated. The smallest flicker of doubt crossed her face. "Yes." The word sounded practiced. Daniel swallowed. If he was right, if this truly was Lily Harrington, every minute mattered. But so did how he handled it. His habit returned to him. Look twice. The first glance says, "Call the police immediately." The second glance asks, "Why is she here?" He took a careful breath. "We've seen your picture before," he said quietly. Her eyes flashed. "I'm not her." "Okay," he said calmly. "Then tell me your name." Silence. Wind howled down the alley. She looked toward the street, measuring distance. She could run, but she didn't. Instead, she asked, "Are you going to turn me in?" The question stunned him. Turn her in. Not help. Not rescue. Turn in. That wasn't the language of a kidnapped child. That was the language of someone who had chosen to disappear. Daniel's voice softened further. "I'm not here to turn you in." She searched his face for a long moment. Then she whispered, almost involuntarily. Lily. There it was. The truth. It hung in the cold air between them. Daniel felt something shift inside him, not excitement, not triumph. Responsibility. You know your dad is looking everywhere for you, he said gently. Her expression hardened. He's looking for his future CEO, she replied. Not for me. The words carried no childish exaggeration. Only exhaustion. Daniel sat back on his heels. What happened? He asked. She shrugged. He doesn't have time. No one does. Tutors. Security. Schedules. I tried to tell him I don't want the company. Her chin trembled, but she held steady. I just want to be Lily. The simplicity of it struck him harder than any corporate crisis he'd faced. A 9-year-old hiding in garbage to escape expectation. The city roared faintly beyond the alley. And in that moment, Daniel understood something profound. Money can protect a child from danger. It cannot protect them from loneliness. He removed his coat slowly and held it out. You can keep looking for food, he said. Or you can come somewhere warm and talk. She stared at the coat. Then at him. Are you going to call him? Not until you're ready. It wasn't a lie. It was a promise to listen first. Minutes passed. Finally, cautiously, she stepped forward and accepted the coat. It swallowed her small frame. Daniel stood and extended his hand. She hesitated, just long enough to show how much trust cost her. Then she placed her small, cold fingers in his. And together, they stepped out of the alley. Out of the shadows. Because one man had kept a simple habit, the heater hummed softly inside the small community center in Queens. It wasn't glamorous. No marble floors. No security gates. Just warm light, worn couches, and the faint smell of tomato soup. Lily sat at a folding table, Daniel's oversized coat wrapped around her like armor. A volunteer had quietly placed a bowl of soup and a grilled cheese sandwich in front of her. She stared at it for a moment, as if unsure whether it was truly hers. Daniel didn't rush her. That was another habit of his. Never interrupt someone who is gathering courage. She took one bite, then another, and suddenly the careful billionaire executive felt something tighten in his chest. Hunger like that wasn't dramatic. It was silent, controlled, disciplined, like her. After a few minutes, she looked up. Are you really not calling him yet? Not yet, Daniel said gently. I want to understand. She studied him again, searching for the hidden catch. When she found none, she spoke. I didn't get kidnapped. I know. I left. I figured. She looked almost surprised. You're not shocked. Daniel gave a small, sad smile. I grew up in Brooklyn. When something doesn't make sense, I don't accept the first explanation. She tilted her head. What do you mean? I mean most people look once and assume. I looked twice. A faint flicker of curiosity appeared in her eyes. I was tired, she said finally. Of being scheduled. Scheduled. She nodded. सुबह के 6 बजे. Mandarin, सुबह के 7 बजे piano. School, robotics, public appearances, interviews about the future of innovation. Her voice hardened slightly at the last phrase. I'm 9. Daniel felt the weight of those two words settle into the room. 9. Outside, somewhere across New York City, media events still suckled. Headlines still screamed. Commentators still speculated. But here, there was just a child who wanted to breathe. My dad loves me, she added quickly, almost defensively. He just doesn't see me. That sentence hit Daniel harder than any accusation. Because he had once been the same kind of man. Before his wife passed away. Before he realized board meetings couldn't hug you back. He stood slowly and stepped into the hallway. It was time. He dialed a private number he rarely used. After 3 rings, a strained voice answered. This is Charles. Daniel spoke calmly. This is Daniel Whitmore. A pause. The Daniel Whitmore. Yes. Another pause, longer this time. What do you want? I have your daughter. The line went silent. For a moment, Daniel thought the call had dropped. Then he heard something unexpected. Not anger. Not authority. A broken breath. Is she alive? Yes. Another breath, this one shaky. Where is she? Safe. Put her on the phone. Daniel's voice remained steady. No. Silence. If you want to see her, Daniel continued, you'll come alone. No media. No security. That's not possible. It is if you want her trust back. The words hung there. For the first time in weeks, one of the most powerful tech sources in America had no script. Send me the address, Charles Harrington whispered. 40 minutes later, headlights swept across the frosted windows of the center. A single black SUV pulled up. No convoy, no flashing lights, just one man stepping out into the cold. Inside, Lily froze. She recognized the sound of that engine. Daniel knelt beside her. "You don't have to run," he said softly. "I'm not scared," she replied. But her fingers tightened around the edge of the table. The door opened. Charles Harrington stepped inside. He looked different from the polished executive on business magazine covers. His tie was crooked, his hair uncombed, his face pale from sleepless nights. When his eyes found Lily, the world seemed to stop. He didn't speak at first. He dropped to his knees. "Lily," her name broke in his throat. The room felt charged, like lightning before a storm. Lily stood slowly. She didn't run into his arms. She walked, step by step, measured. Daniel stayed back. This wasn't his moment anymore. Charles reached out, but stopped himself, unsure if he deserved the touch. "Baby, why didn't you listen?" she asked quietly. The question sliced through the room. Charles swallowed hard. "I thought I was building something for you." "I don't want it," she said. The words were small, but powerful enough to shake empire. "I don't want to be your company." Silence. The heater hummed. Somewhere outside, a siren wailed faintly in the distance. Charles' shoulders collapsed. For the first time in years, he wasn't a billionaire. He wasn't a visionary. He wasn't a headline. He was just a father who almost lost his daughter to loneliness. Tears filled his eyes. "I didn't see it," he whispered. "I was looking at the future. I forgot to look at you." Daniel felt a quiet ripple of understanding pass through the room. "Look twice." Charles opened his arms, slowly, cautiously. This time, Lily stepped forward without hesitation. And when she wrapped her arms around him, the tension dissolved. Not perfectly, not instantly, but honestly. After a long moment, Charles looked up at Daniel. "The reward." Daniel shook his head gently. "Keep it." Charles frowned. "Then what do you want?" Daniel's answer was simple. "Build a schedule that includes bedtime stories." A weak, tearful laugh escaped Charles. Weeks later, headlines shifted. Not about ransom, not about crime, but about a CEO stepping down from daily operations to prioritize family. And quietly, without cameras, millions were donated to youth shelters across the United States. Because one man kept a simple habit. He looked twice, and in doing so, he didn't just find a missing heiress. He reunited a father and a daughter who had almost lost each other in plain sight.